So dudes, it's Tuhu. Chiori's finally here, and since a lot of people are treating this patch as a filler patch and haven't really been paying much attention to her, I figured I'll do my due diligence and make a quick first impressions video about her since I think people are overlooking her pretty hard. That, and I luck-sacked hard on her banner by getting both her and her signature within 4 multis, which is something I don't remember ever happening on my account the entire time I've been playing Genshin. I swear this is not an excuse just to tell you that. Anyways, let's start with her kit so we have a basic idea of what she does. Her normals and charge attack are pretty standard, nothing unique or remarkable about them other than the fact that she dual wields, so her skill is where she gets the party started. Her skill has a tap and hold version that mechanically work just like Keqing's and Alhaitham's. Tap to have Chiori rush forward at the nearest enemy and hit him with Geo. Hold to control the exact angle you want to yeet her at, including up. Just like the other two, the hold skill still puts her in that annoying freefall state, even if you aim it along the ground, so as usual, just tap the skill while in combat and only hold for exploration stuff. Oh, and Chiori also gets an elemental infusion for her normals and charge attacks just like Keqing and Alhaitham do. But that's where the similarities end, because functionally Chiori is not at all like the other two, and the reason is her girly. 2 of them, to be exact. When she uses her skill, Chiori also puts down a little floating doll on the ground slightly behind where she hits an enemy or at the end of her skill trajectory. Actually, they're not even little, they're bigger than Chiori is from the torso up. These dolls are coordinated attackers. They hit enemies right after your characters do with Geo skill damage so long as you attack enemies within their range. And because Chiori can have 2 of them out at once, both of them can launch coordinated attacks. However, Chiori herself can only deploy 1 doll at a time. If you want to get the second one to come out, she needs a teammate to throw out a construct of their own, or at C1, just another Geo teammate. It's her dolls that provide the bulk of her damage output. Despite the Geo infusion that she gets from her own skill, Chiori herself isn't intended to be an on-field DPS like Keqing or Alhaitham are, mainly because her own Geo infusion isn't as strong. The infusion itself only lasts for 5 seconds, as opposed to Alhaitham's, which can easily last twice as long or more, and Chiori's skill has a 16-second cooldown as opposed to Keqing's, which comes back in like 7.5, so Chiori can't spam it like Keqing can. This means that functionally, Chiori is a lot more similar to Albedo than she is to Keqing or Alhaitham, despite the, Geo Keqing memes. Her skill has one additional and unique mechanic that's worth noting. After she uses her skill, if you press her elemental skill button again, she will swap herself out for the next character after her in the party lineup. So if Chiori is your point character, as in she's in the first position, whoever is in second will come in. If she's in second, she'll bring in the third to fourth, and if she's your anchor, or the last character, she'll bring it up top and pull in your first. The pattern you see on your screen when Chiori uses her skill isn't just for show either. It's a visual indicator on the window you have to swap Chiori out for the next character, and when the pattern disappears, you also lose the quick swap mechanic and have to switch to your characters the normal way. It's a short window, so you already need to plan to swap to another character, so it takes some time getting used to if you choose to use it, though keep in mind that you don't have to if you prefer switching characters on your own. And lastly, her elemental burst or her ultimate. It's pretty simple. It's a low cost, short cooldown ult that does good damage, but before C2 doesn't do anything more than that. Now, if your Chiori is C2, then that's a different story, but I'll save that for when I do a more complete guide on Chiori, hopefully sometime soon. So let's put together a game plan now for Chiori, and it starts at the party lineup screen. Because of Chiori's doll mechanics, she ideally wants another Geo teammate for both the construct for the extra doll and for double Geo resonance. In my opinion, Zhongli is the best teammate for Chiori. One drawback that Chiori's dolls have is that they have pretty short range from what I can tell at C0, so enemies that move around a lot can give her a hard time. Zhongli's ult can lock down enemies so that way Chiori has time to set up her dolls and the rest of the team can follow up. And if you run Zhongli with 4-piece tenacity, he can put down his pillars right next to enemies so that way the attack buff from 4-piece tenacity set can trigger, which helps both Chiori and the rest of your DPSs if they scale with shield attack. Other than Zhongli, a C0 Chiori's viable Geo teammate options are Ningguang, Albedo, and perhaps surprisingly Ito, because remember that the cow he chucks at people is also considered a construct. Besides the second Geo ally, because Chiori is an off-field DPS at the end of the day, you should run a main on-field DPS that Chiori can support, and either a healer or a second off-field DPS to round out your team. Once you've got your team, here's how the rotation should generally work. You initiate with your second Geo character and throw down their construct, and then switch to Chiori and use her skill. That way she deploys both her dolls right away, and since they last for 17 seconds, they'll be out there for a long time. You then use Chiori's special swap mechanic, if you choose to do so, to switch to your second off-field DPS or healer, have them use their skill if it's applicable, and you finish the rotation with your on-field or your last off-field if you don't have an on-field DPS. So with all this in mind, my impressions of Chiori right now are as follows. She is, in fact, most likely gonna replace Albedo for what that's worth, since I don't know how many of you guys even use Albedo these days in the first place. Before Chiori came out, I read online and I had people tell me over Discord that it was looking like she would be a better Albedo, and from the little bit of playtime I've had with her so far, that seems fairly accurate. In my opinion, it comes down to convenience, and the comparison between her and Albedo exemplifies this. Albedo is straight up a lot more convenient to use. His skill has a short 4-second cooldown, lasts an absurdly long time at 30 seconds, has decent range, and he works with anyone. The only real team restriction he has is that he works best with the core 4 elements, but thanks to his passive that buffs team EM after he ults, you can argue that he can even work with Animo and Dendro characters like Alhaitham, Nahida, and Kazuha, who all scale with EM. His best artifact set by far is 4-piece Husk, so it's not like you need to think about which set you want to give him. Oh, and even if you don't have Senbar Spindle, you can still give him the 3-star Harbinger of Dawn Sword and he'll be fine. Speaking of weapons actually, I'm pretty sure Albedo's new best in slot weapon is Chiori's too because of their roles being so similar, so even though he's technically getting power crept by Chiori, he's also getting stronger with her, assuming you get him his own copy of her signature weapon. Chiori is the polar opposite in terms of convenience. Her skill has specific mechanics that you have to pay attention to get the most out of them. She demands certain teammates who fulfill specific roles on her team, and your rotations ideally need to be on point because of how demanding her team requirements are to begin with. She also has at least 3 different viable artifact sets that you have to pick between, and even scales off 2 different stats, which comes with its own list of things to consider. But what you get in return is higher damage output and teams that have very smooth rotations thanks to Chiori's built-in quick swap mechanic. And the more constellations you get for Chiori, especially when she hits C2, which is when she gets real crazy, the more noticeable the difference in performance between those two. On her own, ultimately I think Chiori is going to be a pretty niche pick at the end of the day because she has such high barriers to entry. The kinds of players that she appeals to, in my opinion, are those who are either looking for another strong off-field DPS, and they've already farmed the 2 Fontaine artifact domains a ton, so they have lots of spare either Golden Trope or Nighttime Whispers artifacts to give her, or you're a Geo main and you'll take any extra strong Geo character you can get, even if that means she's kinda power creeping Albedo. So even though I still think people are overlooking her pretty hard, I will say that she's not gonna pull a Navia from, 2 patches ago and convince people to all of a sudden start trying to roll for her with her performance alone because of those high barriers to entry. But if you're willing to make her work, she's definitely a strong character and a great addition overall to the Geo family. As I mentioned earlier, I'll be working on a more dedicated Chiori guide in the coming week or 2 as I get more experience playing her and maybe experiment with other artifact sets, since I'm interested to see how well she performs with Husk and Golden Trope, as right now I'm running her with Nighttime Whispers. So feel free to like this video and subscribe to stay tuned. In the meantime, best of luck for anyone rolling for Chiori or anything on the new Chronicled Wish banner, and thanks for watching.